This week on Fishette, Jon reveals a surefire system for tracking down and trolling up hungry walleyes roaming open water as the dog days of summer fade to fall.
There's a fish right there. Look at that. That's a better start than I guess I would have even expected possible. Let me get this fish in, then we're gonna scroll back, get a waypoint in that area because there's a lot of fish right there. That's a great sign when you get bit that early after what we're dealing with overnight and now what we're dealing with this morning. I mean, obviously it's rough out here, and that's a north wind. You get in these north winds, I'll tell you, it can be tough at this time of the year because what's happening is different than earlier in the year. Now the water temps are dropping too, because you're into that time frame right before fall gets in where everything is transitioning. Good walleye to start. Look at that. Got him. What a great way to start. That's awesome. Everything's tougher in this weather. Right down to, oh, look at that. He got himself unhooked. I was just thinking I'm going to have to get my toolkit out. I hadn't even gotten that out yet. Look at that. Great start. Got himself unhooked right in the net. But man, everything's tougher in this kind of wind. There's just nothing you can do about it. But I'll tell you, if we can catch fish like that all day long, that quick, holy moly, it's a good start. One of the things I'll tell you about the scenario we're in is these water temps, we've dropped all the way to 73 degrees now, okay? This is that August time frame where the first cold nights are starting. You're getting more and more of that north wind because it's bringing those cold nights. You're getting storms because of it. There's nothing you can do about that, and that's just all part of the dog days of summer. But what you want to do now is be willing to cover water. And covering water a lot of times means covering areas where fish were not at in May, June, and July, which was structure-based areas. Now we're just covering basin because what's happening is these fish are scattering all over. And when this starts to happen, the best way to catch fish is to just start looking everywhere outside of the norm. Because as these fish scatter, they're just chasing bait, and there's bait all over out in this stuff. I'm out in 34 feet of water right now, 32 to 34. And I'll tell you, as we're running along all this, and this happens all over the Midwest, there's all kinds of big bodies of water with similar basins. And these fish, they just all slide out into that basin stuff. And all of a sudden, you gotta really cover ground to find these fish. And then, like I say, you gotta make a few adjustments, and we'll continue talking about that today because of the weather conditions that get thrown at you at this time of the year. There's one right there. Yep. One of the things I'll tell you about pulling lures like we're pulling right now is getting them dialed into the exact depth is a big deal. And that might be bigger key some days than color, but using a line counter reel really helps me with that. Even with lead core. I know I'm gonna dive 5 feet for every color of lead that I've got out. Using a shallow diving crank. This guy's on the back hook, so I'm gonna be real careful with him. Just see if we can get him to the boat. Yeah, as long as you got him on top like that, usually you won't have a problem. Got him. Look at that. But I've got it really dialed in. I'm running down 230 feet of line. And a lot of times, the biggest, most important thing is having yourself dialed in to that exact depth, especially with lead core. Because what happens is the last thing you want is for these fish to have the lure going under them or too far over them. And once you get your depth dialed in, like I've done here, all of a sudden you know exactly where you need to be. Look at that. Another great eye. Got a hook. Almost got real unlucky to start my day there. Get out of here, buddy. But here's the thing. Using that line counter allows me to get this lure dialed in perfect. And that's what I've done. If you're getting mud on that hook, you're running too deep. So now you can bring it up 10 feet, 5 feet, whatever that adjustment is, but you know the exact depth to go right back down to. I know that I'm gonna go right back down to 230 feet, and that's putting me right in the right zone to get these fish to bite. There's fish right there. Yep. The one thing about these rogues is when you're pulling a rogue, you know when you hook up, very seldom do you lose a fish. And I'll tell you why. You got 3 sticky hooks. I mean, you got a lot of hooks down there, and as long as you're steady with them coming in, very seldom will you lose a fish. All right, we're close here. Let me get this net ready. We're at the leader. I run a 20 to 30 foot leader. This leader, I lost a little bit of line on it, broke a lure off here recently, and I'm down to 20 feet. I usually start at 30 feet. A leader of 10 pound, standard monofilament, good walleye. Look at that one. Great fish. But simple, standard monofilament, does a great job for me. Now, if I'm river fishing and pulling lead core, that's when I usually go to a super line for my leader, because there's usually so much more debris that I need to be able to see if I've got something hung up. And with super line, I can see. Another great eye. Get out of here, buddy. But with that 10 pound monofilament leader, I'm absolutely just fine when I'm fishing clean lakes. You know, situations where I'm not gonna get hung up a lot. But yeah, if I'm in a river, I wanna be able to pull back, and with super line, I can actually feel that lure running. I don't worry about it so much when I'm fishing clean water like we're doing here. I think one of the biggest questions I ask myself every day as I'm headed out on the water, if I'm trolling, is what lure do I think is gonna really trip their trigger today? And it changes day to day based on conditions. And one of my favorites is Smithwick Rogue. That's what we're pulling today, but I wanna tell you why I'm pulling this Rogue today. When you're dealing with a scenario where storms came through last night, you got a northwest wind, you're obviously in a cold front, and there's a lot of instability. Running a big lure to grab their attention is important, but sometimes lessening the action can make a big difference too. And that's what I'm doing by running this Rogue. I'm running the suspending version today. It's giving me just a little bit more dive on that lead core. And the other thing it's doing is giving me just a little bit more wobble than the standard shallow diving rattling Rogue. But it's nothing compared to the Perfect 10 or the Elite 8 or the top 20. I mean, this Rogue here has very little action down there. It's a tight little wiggle, and then you add in these rattles. And if you listen to that rattle, it's a little lesser rattle than, say, a Bandit, which would be a thunk, thunk, thunk. That big heavy rattle, again, that's gonna be more important when I'm sitting there in conditions that are stable. But when you're fighting conditions where the fish are a little bit off, sometimes you just wanna be a little bit more to the natural side, and that's what that Rogue gives me. There's one right there. Oh yeah, it feels like a decent fish. Man, I'll tell you, this is fun fishing. And when you get to a point where you can get dialed in like we're dialed in, this is just a lot of fun. Because you can go through here and you can see fish. I saw this fish, or some of these fish. This fish is one of a pile that I saw on the graph. And I kind of felt looking at it like I'm gonna catch one of those, because there were a couple of them that were up, a couple of them that were down. You just had that feeling that you were gonna get one of them. And a lot of that's just being dialed in on that depth. I'm bouncing back and forth in colors. If I do a half a pass, third of a pass, and don't get a fish on one color, I just switch back. Just going back and forth today between this chrome black with the orange belly and Fire Tiger. But one thing you notice about those two colors, they both have the orange belly. And a lot of times, especially out in this basin stuff, I like fishing something with an orange belly, because what it does, ooh, back hook, got him. What it does is it gives them something they can see really, really easy. Man, we've got a lot of this same fish today. Same size fish all day long. And they're all just out here eating in the basin. There we go, got them unhooked that easy. This is a lot of fun. This is cool stuff. Come here, buddy, and we'll get you out of here. Just trying to be careful and not end up with a crankbait in my thumb. I got really lucky earlier. Man, that'd be a great eater-sized fish if we were keeping fish, but awesome fish. Look at that. Just goes to show you everything's out here in the basin. You get to this time of the year, get out and pull some lead core, pull some cranks, put some lures down there that are gonna grab their attention and just rip right through the basin. And what you're gonna find out is there's a lot of fish just like that one that are untouched by everybody that's still fishing structure. When you get to this time of the year, these fish are all scattered. That fish hasn't seen a bait in a long time, I guarantee you, because everybody's still up fishing structures, and a lot of these fish are out here in this basin. It's a great way to catch them when you get into the dog days of summer and you start dealing with a lot of these different fronts coming through.